is we're going to be talking about the Federalist Papers over the next couple of days. We'll be getting into that. And I've chosen two of them for you to read, number 71 and number 10. There's 85 Federalist Papers, okay? And they help explain the Constitution. We haven't talked about the new Constitution yet, but we will on Monday. And so I think I made that due Monday night, okay? So it's just, you read the Federalist Papers, not the full text of the Federalist Papers, just like one page out of like, some of these are like 20 pages long. And there's 3 questions for each one. I'll give you 2 points for each question you answer. Do your best, okay? It's written in English, okay, but it's written in English in 1787. Okay, so they use the English language a little differently. You guys know Shakespeare, right? I mean, it's like, it's in English, but you have a hard time figuring out what the heck he's saying, right? Well, some of you, right? Me, I do. Okay. So sometimes you got to read it a couple times to kind of figure out what they're saying. These were written by James Madison, number 10, and number 71 was written by Alexander Hamilton. And it's just it's a good exercise. And they talk about 2 important points with the new Constitution. Okay, so that homework's on there. The files are on there. You can write it on paper if you want to take a picture of it, or you can type it up, your answers. Do your best. If it looks like to me that you did your best, you'll get full credit for it, okay? You don't necessarily have to have the exact right answer. Just show me that you tried to do it, okay? And Jack, if the vocab stuff's 1 day late, it's 2 points off, so it's 15 out of 17, and that will help you grade. So if you want to send it to me, you can. All right? Okay, so last thing we talked about, guys, was independence. I'm actually moved that assignment to Tuesday night. I still want to show you a video. So we'll have video Monday, okay? And so Monday we'll watch video. Tuesday we'll talk more about some of the stuff. You just continue to get through this, okay? Good morning. Yep. Okay. All right. So is that music bothering anybody? I did a whole study on this last year on my master's, so playing background music like this seems to help. So, here we go. It helps me when I'm grading. I was here early grading this morning. So. All right, we did this last week. Okay, the Declaration. There were 5 men on the committee. Adams, Franklin, Jefferson, underlined because he's the one that actually writes it. Okay, he used a lot of John Locke's ideas. In many ways, it laid out an idea for the type of government we wanted, kind of, outline, if you will, protections, basic rights, and liberties, rely on the consent of the governed for our authority. That's the social contract. Okay, and then down here, George Washington is named Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, June 15, 1776. Now, guys, they are making this stuff up as they go along. Like, Continental Army, somebody had to come up with that name. Commander-in-Chief, somebody came up with that name. This is all brand new. They created this out of nothing. And really, guys, this is the first time in history that we see this being done this way. Like breaking away from a mother country, creating a new nation from scratch. Now, they're going to have to win the war. You understand? This war is not going to be easy. This is a bunch of farmers, okay, against the greatest army on the planet, with the best navy on the planet. So I made Lily watch with me on snow day. She had never seen The Patriot. Seen The Patriot, the movie The Patriot? Holy cow. Okay, now I've got the extended cut. It's like 3 hours. It's freaking awesome. Okay, Mel Gibson and it's about the Southern campaign in the American Revolution. Okay, and Mel Gibson plays this character that really encompasses like three different people in the South, the Gamecock, okay, and these other like guys, rednecks, right? These are like country folk, and the British come down to South Carolina and they're fighting. You know what I mean? And these are militia, not the Continental Army, but the militia as well, fighting with the Continental Army. And it's a fabulous movie, guys. And it really shows what the Americans were up against fighting the British. Okay, outmanned, outgunned, outtrained, everything. But we were fighting for freedom. We were fighting for our rights. Okay, and this document that is written is read to the troops. It's read to the people. This is passed around the colonies. Okay, and there's other documents. You guys have all heard of Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Okay, like this explains how does this small island across the Atlantic control this huge new world? It doesn't make sense. That's what Thomas Paine said. It's not common sense. All right, and so that sold over 120,000 copies of that pamphlet that Thomas Paine wrote throughout the colonies. So that's building support for this. I talked about how difficult it was to get all 13 colonies on board with this. Once we did, now we got to win. Okay, in a political sense, guys, what happens after this is you have 13 colonies all of a sudden become 13 countries. They're all independent countries. So they've all got to write a state constitution. So as soon as Jefferson writes this and we pass the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson goes back to Virginia to write the Virginia Constitution. And these other men go back to their home states and help write their own state constitutions. So that's the next thing we're studying here is these new constitutions, guys. And these are a really interesting study, okay, guys? And it's a good thing. Remember when we talked about establishing a federal government, sharing a division of power between national, state, and local governments, federalism? It's a good thing we did that because some of these state constitutions are not going to treat people very well, okay? Especially based on religion. Obviously, guys, we still have slavery, okay? Now, so the states reflect a desire for limited government. They're afraid of a strong, powerful government, too. That's what we're breaking away from is a strong, powerful government that takes away our rights, okay? Now, all of them are going to have bicameral legislatures with the exception of Pennsylvania. They're going to be different. They have a unicameral. So remember, your Congress or your legislature, okay, you've got two houses, upper house and a lower house. Okay, so in Kansas today, we weren't one of the original 13, of course, but we have a bicameral legislature. Okay, today with 50 states, 49 of them have a Senate and a House. Only one state has a unicameral legislature with one House. It's not Pennsylvania. They changed to a bicameral. And you guys know which state of the 50 only has one chamber? No? Who? No? Now, you know in Topeka, right, we have a state house and a state senate, yes? Okay, that's what I'm talking about. All right, now, this state doesn't. Any other guesses? Yeah. Rhode Island. Good guess. No. It's near us. No. Nebraska. Okay, today Nebraska is the only state that has a unicameral legislature. Mrs. Lovelace, her grandfather, served in that legislature. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting thing. All right, now they gave very little power to the chief executive of the state, the governors, because they feared power. So really all the power is with the legislatures, with the people. You know, we elect these legislatures, they make decisions for us. We don't give a lot of power to the governor. Okay, and that is the case today in many of the 50 states, guys. Some states the governor has a lot of power. Some states the governor doesn't have much power at all. And I tell you what, this COVID thing, you remember, because Laura Kelly, our governor, shut down every school in the state. Okay, she had the power to do that. She doesn't anymore. The legislature took that power away from her. Okay. And a lot of other states did the same thing. Like Michigan's governor, Whitmer, this woman, she went crazy. Okay, like, and they had lockdowns there like much longer than we did. And they said, you know what? We're taking away this power from our governor. This is crazy. Okay, so really one of the byproducts of COVID is a weakening of the executive in these states. Okay, taking away their power and bringing it back to the legislature where it belongs. Okay. And they were so fearful of power, they had annual elections. So like if somebody becomes governor and they like start to become tyrannical, well, you can get them out within a year. You know what I mean? It's like, that's quick turnover. Okay. It just really shows this desire to limit government and fear of it, power of government. You with me? Okay, so that is something that is American, okay? And we see this battle going on in the United States every day today, okay? All right, so one of the things the states did good with these constitutions, most of them put in like a list of individual rights. Like they had a Bill of Rights within these state constitutions, which is good. Okay, these are protections for the people. This echoes the English Bill of Rights that we looked at earlier, which was, things like trial by jury, due process of law, no taxation without representation, no cruel and unusual punishment, these sorts of things that we find in the U.S. Bill of Rights today. Okay, were found in a lot of the state constitutions. Now, one of the things that our legislatures have always been made up of early on were white male property owners. White male property owners, okay? So these white male property owners were the ones that could vote, and they were the ones that could be elected to the colonial legislature. So if you were living in Massachusetts and you wanted to run for the legislature, for the assembly, you had to be a white male property owner. What we're going to see with these new state constitutions, at least 5 of these states allowed white male taxpayers to vote. You didn't have to necessarily own property, but you just had to pay taxes. If you were paying taxes, you got the right to vote. Okay. Now, guys, this is an expansion of voting rights. This is allowing more people to vote. Okay. This is 1790. All right, ladies, you're going to have to wait another 130 years. Okay. So we're talking about expanding voting rights. It's a baby step. You understand? This isn't like everybody gets to vote, okay? And you guys, I don't know if you know this or not, the voting age used to be 21. Okay, now it's 18. So we've done a really good job over the years of expanding voting rights, all right? And now, basically, if you're a U.S. citizen and you register to vote, you're not convicted of a felony, depending on the state, you can vote. Okay, in fact, we have early voting, we have mail-in voting, we have in-person voting. Okay, so look, if you don't vote. Now, sometimes you got to show an ID. You live in the state of Kansas, you got to show an ID. Okay? Everybody in here got an ID? Good? All right. Now all you got to do is register. Do that online. All you got to do is Google, register to vote, Kansas. Bam. Takes you to the Secretary of State page. Bam. Fill out the information. We'll send you a form. You sign it, send it back. You're registered to vote. And you will stay registered to vote for as long as you live. Now, if you move or change addresses, you need to re-register because you vote in a different precinct. Okay? If you die, they're supposed to take you off the voter rolls. Some states do a better job of that than others. Okay? All right. Other things we see in these state constitutions, separation of powers, so 3 branches, so separating their power, and generally this idea of self-government. Okay. Now, one of the things they did in these that was not good, so some of these states had official state religions. So if you wanted to run for office in that state, you had to be of that religion. Look, this is a bad idea. Okay? So when they wrote the new Constitution in the Bill of Rights, they said, you know what? We're not going to be that country. We're not going to have all these wars over religion. We're just going to create a situation where government cannot create an official religion and people have the free exercise to practice whatever religion they want or none at all. Okay? Because, you know, religion is something that is personal to people. Okay? We can't have the government dictating that to us. We learn our lesson from history here. Okay? And the history was, I mean, this did not work out well as far as the religious test. Okay? Sometimes referred to as a lemon test. All right. So, in your key terms that you guys did, they talked about some of the questions revolved around the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so let me do a quick, I don't have any notes over this, quick overview of what the Articles of Confederation are. Now, I think everybody remembers what confederal government is. States, local governments, national government is very small. You guys remember this, right? All the power is at the state and local level. Yes? Why? Because they feared big government. They feared government in and of itself. So they didn't give the national government any power. They could declare war. They could coin money. But they couldn't tax. So where is the national government going to get money? They can print it, but it's not worth anything. There's no value attached to it. So the national government is literally begging the states for money. Okay, and that doesn't work out too well. This Articles of Confederation is a one-branch government, and it's a legislature. One body. Each state gets to, does anybody know this? Each state gets to elect how many people to go to the national government and serve in the legislature? One. So you know how many people are in the legislature? 13. Okay, there's 13 people in the legislature. That's the national government, 13 people. They can't tax, and there's no executive branch. You guys know what the executive branch does? It enforces the law. Okay, so the legislative branch controls money, right? The executive branch controls the sword to enforce the law. But there is no executive branch, and there's no judicial branch. So what if there's a fight, an argument between two states? There's 13 guys in this legislature, and let's say 2 of them are arguing. We talked about this. You got You're Virginia, okay? And you're Pennsylvania. Now, you've got the Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac River, and you don't. But you need to use the Chesapeake Bay to get goods into Pennsylvania. And you're going to tax him to use the Chesapeake Bay. What the hell? Jack, you're pissed. What do? Who do you go complain with? We got 13 people in here. We got 13. Hey, Wilson, are you with him or are you with him? Who are you with? Are you with Jack? Who are you guys going to side with here? And so you start having these arguments within these 13 people. And they're fighting. And then they're fighting over the border of the states. Like, no, that's not the state line. The state line is here. Okay? And guys, this legislative branch, there's no judicial branch to settle arguments between states. So they start teaming up against each other, and the country's falling apart. It's awful. Like, they fought for 8 years to defeat the British, and now they're just going to collapse under their own weight with all this infighting between the states. And George Washington is pissed. He's like, what the heck, man? We went through all this, and now the Europeans are watching us. They're looking at us and going, these people think they know how to run a government. They think they know how to run a country. And they're waiting for us to just dissolve and ask for them to come back to help. And George Washington's like, we can't let this happen. Okay? And so he's writing letters to Jefferson. Now, Jefferson is in France. Jefferson is our minister to France. Okay? Because we've got to have foreign policy guys. John Adams is in London as the U.S. ambassador to Britain. Okay? So some of these important people from the Declaration are now serving in other jobs. We got some new people that are going to come in, okay, like James Madison, Alexander Hamilton. Okay, so the guys we talked about earlier, and George Washington's still around. Ben Franklin's still around. So Washington convinces Madison and Hamilton. Okay, now who are these guys? Who are Madison? James Madison. He's from Virginia, okay? He's about 5 foot, 5'4", 5'5". He's a little guy. He's sickly. Like, when he was a kid, he was always sick. He has nervous fits. Really, guys, he's your prototypical nerd, right? Like, straight up bookworm, nerd, kind of, fragile and so forth, right? But he's really smart. Now, his dad thought that he would probably become like a pastor, a reverend. But he met Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson recognized how bright this young man was. He says, you know what? You need to get involved in the Virginia legislature. So he got into politics. And right away, people recognized this is probably the smartest guy in the room, James Madison. We need to kind of like listen to this guy. And he reads, he consumes, he's brilliant, okay? And he studies history, and he studies political science. So he's looking at different forms of government throughout history. He's a good guy to turn to, okay? Alexander Hamilton. Now, any Hamilton fans, like the Broadway show? Okay, so listen, you've all heard of Hamilton, the Broadway? Yeah. Okay, it's up here somewhere. It's based on a book by Ron Chernow. Maybe I'm looking at it and not seeing it. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is Hamilton, okay, by Ron Chernow, okay? And so the musical is based off of this. Okay. Now, those of you who don't know this, Hamilton was born in the Virgin Islands. Okay, and he's a bastard child. So his father came to the Virgin Islands from Scotland, and he met this local woman in the Virgin Islands, and well, they had relations, and then he went back to Scotland. And so, now guys, when you say a bastard child, back in those days, that means a lot. You know what I mean? Because you were born out of wedlock. You know what I mean? Okay, and that was a big deal back then. Today, it's like, it's what it is. Okay? Okay, now, right or wrong. Now, Hamilton, oh my gosh, this guy is really smart as well. So, like Madison and Hamilton, if you're going to take the ACT, these guys are the ones that are going to make it 36. Okay? So, Hamilton went to work early as a young man, and he went to work for this guy that ran an international shipping company out of the Virgin Islands. I wonder what he was shipping out of the Virgin Islands. What did they grow down there? What kind of plantations? Sugar. Okay? Sugar plantations. And, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, a lot of the slave trade that came out of Africa, slaves would be sent to the Caribbean first and then to the States. Okay? So, like, when we were on a cruise a few years ago, went to this island, and they pointed to this other island that you could see. They said that was a slave island. So, like, they would bring slaves in and put them there and then move them from place to place. Okay? So, Hamilton's working for this guy that runs this big shipping company. All right? At the age of 13, this guy, he's going to Europe. He's going to be gone for like 6 months or a year. He leaves a 13-year-old in charge of this international shipping company. And when he gets back, not only is the company being run well, it's being run more efficiently than it was when he left. So by the time Madison hits like 15, this business owner and some other guys that are impressed by Hamilton say, you know what? We are going to pay for you to go to college up in the States. And so they send him up to the States. Now, this is prior to the Revolution. He shows up at William and Mary, the college, and they say, okay, I want to be a lawyer. I want to study law. Now, guys, you used to be able to study law without getting a bachelor's degree. Okay, like now you got to go get a history degree or a political science degree, and then you go to law school. Okay, so you got to have an undergrad. Back then, you could just go study law. And they said, okay, well, this is going to take a few years. You're going to have to take these classes, and then you're going to have to do an internship and this sort of thing. And Hamilton said, no. Just give me the books. Give me the books. And so he goes, reads all the law books, studies, comes back 6 months later, and passes the bar exam. That's how smart this guy is, okay? Then the war breaks out, okay? And Hamilton, he's a patriot. He's like, screw these Brits. You know what I mean? And so he joins the Continental Army. Now, he reads some books on artillery, okay? Because he's going to be, he wants to do something and help, okay? And so he joins the Continental Army. No, not many people really know who he is, but soon they figure out this guy really understands military strategy and the use of cannon. And guess who takes notice of it? George Washington. Okay, so this relationship, these two relationships, Madison with Jefferson and Hamilton with Washington, will propel these men into the spotlight. Okay, and so when the Articles of Confederation failed, Okay, so the war is 1775 to 1783. The Second Continental Congress that wrote the Declaration is going to write the Articles of Confederation in 1781. So while the war is still going on, they write the first Constitution. By 1787, they're like, this isn't working. Okay, so Madison and Hamilton meet in Annapolis, Maryland. Okay, I was there for my niece's wedding 2 summers ago. Outdoor wedding in Maryland in the summer. It was 100 degrees outside. It was right over the Chesapeake Bay, but there was no breeze. It was brutal. I mean, I was just drenched in sweat. Okay. But my sister and I, like, we walked around. Like, Annapolis is a very historic city. Okay. And we found the place where Madison and Hamilton met to talk about the new Constitution. And they agreed. We need a new Constitution. Rather than fixing the articles, we just need to scrap this thing and start over from scratch. Get away from the confederal system and create a federal government, a federal system. Yes, where they share powers between the three. The national government, guys, was going to have to be stronger for this to work. We started with 13 counties. We're at 50, or 13 states. We're at 50 now. Okay, we need a government that has a little bit more power than what we had under that. Okay, so, guys, this becomes known as the Constitutional Convention. All right, and this is the stuff that books are written about. All right, so they're going to meet where, of course? Going back to Philly. Okay, going to meet in Independence Hall, which used to be called Carpenter's Hall. But they signed the Declaration of Independence in that building. They're going to change the name. It's Independence Hall. These men are going back in there. Now, who's going to be there? This is really important. Like, who's there and who's going to help write this new Constitution? It's going to last about 3 months. In the hot summer of Philadelphia, the hottest summer in 30 years. Now, you got 55 men from the 13 states. Okay. When they wrote the articles in 1781, no longer did we have 13 countries. We had one nation with 13 states. Okay. But from 1775 or 1776 to 1781, we had 13 countries. The only thing holding them together was the Second Continental Congress. Okay. All right. So who's there? You got 8 of these 55 had signed the Declaration. One of them being Charles Carroll, okay, who was the only Catholic that signed it. He is actually going to be here as well at the convention. And Charles Carroll, by the way, guys, the only Catholic to sign the Declaration, was the longest living signer of the Declaration. He was the last to die. Okay. So, like, you know, when we talk about our World War II veterans, at some point, there's going to be one World War II veteran left. And they'll be the last surviving one. Charles Carroll was the last surviving signer of the Declaration. Okay. 7 had been to the First Continental Congress, and 7 of them were governors of their states. So listen, we're going to send the governor out of state to go to Philadelphia for 3 months. That's how important this is. Okay, so 7 of the 13 were governors. So it's a who's who. Notables that are there. I've mentioned this, right? Okay. Ben Franklin, he's still alive. Okay. He will be the oldest member of this convention. George Washington, who is like a god. Seriously, man. I mean, like, this is the most famous person in the New World, George Washington. When he walks in the room, everybody stands at attention. It's like, we are graced with this man's presence. He defeated the British. Okay? And then I mentioned Hamilton. I got Madison in a second. Okay? Notably absent. John Adams, like I said, is in Britain and London. Jefferson's in Paris. Patrick Henry, the guy that gave the speech that said, Virginia, we're voting for independence, right? Give me liberty or give me death. He doesn't show up. He's like, nope, I want no part of this. We're going to create a government that is going to abuse our rights. And I'm not going to partake in it. Okay, so this Patrick Henry will be one of the loudest voices against this new Constitution. Now, he's got some good reasons for it. And thank God for Patrick Henry, as we'll talk about the importance of what he does here, even though he's not there. Okay? And then last, as we mentioned, Washington will be named the chairman of the convention or the president of the Constitutional Convention. Of course, okay? So you can see him. This is Washington standing here. Okay. Hancock was the president of the Second Continental Congress when we signed the Declaration. Okay. Same room, some of the same people, but we got some new people, including this one. Right? And I mentioned James Madison to you. Father of the Constitution is the name we give him. Okay. He was the most prepared going into this convention. He had a plan already written up for government when he showed up. Like, he wrote it out already. He's like, this is what we want to do. Anybody remember the name of his plan? Where was he from? Where's Madison from? What was the name of this plan? The Virginia plan. Okay? Now, I picked this little baby up from the History Book Club a few years ago. History nerd. Okay? And the full text of the Virginia plan is found in here. Okay? But what matters, so the Virginia plan is not what we have as our Constitution, as we will talk about. Okay? But it is a framework to start from. And we do adopt a lot of what is in this. Okay? Now, what he did, like when they introduced the Virginia plan, Madison didn't introduce it himself, even though he wrote it. He had Edmund Randolph, another Virginian, introduce it. So Madison could sit back and watch the room as they were describing his plan for government. And then he started taking notes on what people said about it. We have those notes from this convention. Okay? So that's why we call Madison the father of the Constitution, is because both he was most prepared and his notes give us a real good look at what was said during the debate over these issues. This helps us better understand the Constitution itself. Okay, and that's why we give him this moniker. Okay, and obviously he'll go on to become the fourth president. But what he does before he's the president is way more important than what he did as president. Okay, writing this Constitution, being a big part of it, is something that we owe a lot to this man for. Okay, that's good for now. So the video we watch on Monday will be a lot of the same stuff that I just talked about, and it's pretty good. Okay, it's pretty good. If you're doing something that happened 250 years ago, they do a good job. All right. Have a nice weekend. Hope your day goes well. And you guys.